Yo, welcome back everyone. So Bitcoin just did something important. It dropped hard into $58,000, flushed over $1 billion in long positions, and then bounced. That is a leverage reset, and it's happening with the daily RSI down at 32, NVRV at 0.21, and fear at 12. Deep value, deep fear. But there is one level that decides whether this flush was the bottom or just a pause. Let me show you. And later, by the way, I'll show you why Friday's options expiry could be the exact moment the pressure finally lifts or breaks 58k wide open. Now, let's talk about structure first. Bitcoin fell about 9% in 3 days into $58,000, the lowest since September 2024. That is a real downtrend, lower highs, lower lows. So I'm not going to pretend this is clean, it is not. But here's what happened at $58,000 that matters. That retest triggered over $1 billion in long liquidations. In plain terms, the over leveraged longs got wiped out. And counterintuitively, that is a healthy thing for a bounce because it removes the fuel for further forced selling. The weak hands are gone. Now the exhaustion stack. Daily RSI is at 32, weekly at 33, pressed down very hard. MVRVZ score at 0.21, deep value. The zone Bitcoin only reaches when it's heavily discounted, and fear and greed at 12, about as scared as this market gets. So my read is trend is down, but momentum, valuation, sentiment, and leverage are all flashing exhaustion at the same time, right as price defends a major low. That is the setup. Now let's talk about the levels that turn it into a trade. And now let me also show you the line in the sand and the level above it where this bounce either dies or accelerates. And also, by the way, if you want to trade with us, you can take advantage of a free bonus using the first link down below in the description. You click the link, you register on BitUnix, and only after you register, you're already going to get 20 USDT completely for free. Then make sure you deposit at least 100 USDT, and you get another 20 USDT on top of that. And when you open up your first trade, you're going to get even bigger bonuses. So make sure to use the first link down below in the description. So let's talk about level by level. The line in the sand is $58,000. That is a 2026 low, and the level price just defended. Hold above it, and the leverage reset bounce stays alive. Lose it on a daily close, and the whole bullish read is off the table. Simple as that. Now let's talk about the level, which I think is the first upside trigger. Reclaim $60,000 and hold it. That is the psychological level we keep fighting over. Above that, the next resistance is at $61,000 500 zone, where the old demand has flipped overhead. And here's the part I told you to wait for, the catalyst. Friday brings a roughly $13 billion Bitcoin options expiry, and is heavily skewed toward puts, the bearish side. Puts outweighed calls by over $3 billion. So why does that matter? Because a lot of that downside positioning has been pinning price. Once these options expire and roll off, that mechanical pressure can lift. And that is often when a relief move gets room to run. If the bounce gets going, the upside targets are the same liquidity pockets as before. The short clusters up towards 63,500 to 65,000. And then the big one, the 200-week EMA at $68,000. That is the level that decides the actual trend. And the downside, to be fair, if $58,000 breaks, the next technical shelf analysts are pointing to is the $45,000 to $55,000 area. So that is the deeper target if the defense fails. Now, the momentum read, because there is one thing that tells us if this bounce is off 58k, is the real deal or a trap. Drop down to the lower time frame with the daily this stretch. The confirmation I want is a bullish divergence of the $58,000 low, price holding or marking a higher low, while RSI and money flow turn up. That is the tell that the selling into this level is drying up. Until that confirms, treat the bounce as a setup, not a signal, by the way. Oversold can stay oversold, and a defended low can still break on the second test. That is the trap to respect. Now let's talk about quick flow context, and this is the honest headwind. ETF flows have been bleeding. The latest days saw another big outflow, and June was the heaviest outflow month of the year. On top of that, the largest corporate buyer has slowed its purchases hard, and capital has been rotating into tech stocks instead of crypto. So the demand side is soft right now. That is exactly why I want price to prove itself with a reclaim before trusting the bounce. So not only that, if you still haven't used the first link down below, now is really the time. You click the link, you register on BitUnix, you get 20 USDT for free just for signing up. Deposit at least 100 USDT, and you get another 20 USDT. And when you open up your first trade, you get even bigger bonuses on top of that. Everything is in the first link down below in the description, by the way. Now let's talk about the two scenarios straight off the levels. Scenario 1, which is the reset bounce. $58,000 holds, a divergence confirms. Friday's puts roll off, and Bitcoin reclaims $60,000 and then $61,500. The flushed longs and the put pressure are gone, so the path opens opens toward the short liquidity at $63,500 to $65,000, and from there the real test at the 200-week $68,000. In this version, the 58K flush was the bottom. And there is the scenario 2, by the way, as well, which I think is the breakdown. The bounce fails, soft demand wins, and $58,000 gives way on a daily close. That opens the deeper shelf at $54,000 to $55,000. Painful, but a flush into there with this much fear already in the market is the kind of capitulation that tends to set up the bigger reversal. So I would watch that zone for the next reaction rather than chase it down. So personally, I think the line is $58,000. The trigger is a $60,000 reclaim, and Friday's expiry is the catalyst to watch. The flush, the deep value, and the fear say we are close. The soft demand says wait for the reclaim before trusting it. None of this is financial advice, by the way, just me walking through the chart. Please trade your plan and manage your risk. The line $58,000, the trigger $60,000 reclaim, the catalyst Friday's expiry. Let me know which side you're leaning in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel as well, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.